300 ships, 15,000 warriors, one bridge. September 25th, 1066. You think you know Vikings? Raids, plunder, terror in the night. But this is different. This is the day the Viking age bled out on English soil. One king thinks he owns England. Another king sailed 300 longships to take it. A third waits in Normandy with his own army. In 21 days, 3 battles will decide the fate of an island and the end of an era. The middle battle, Stamford Bridge, where the last great Viking king dies throat-pierced by an arrow, where 9,000 Norsemen march to glory and 24 ships limp home, where one berserker with an axe holds a bridge alone against an army and kills 40 men before he falls. This is not legend. This is September 1066. These are the receipts. The North wanted him gone. Edward agreed. Tostig fled to Flanders with his wife Judith. Now Edward is dead and Harold wears the crown and Tostig burns for revenge. Then south to Constantinople, joined the Varangian Guard, elite, emperor's bodyguard, fought in Sicily, Jerusalem, Bulgaria, the Mediterranean, Asia Minor, 15 years of war, came home rich, took the throne. Snorri Sturluson says he stood taller than other men. Light hair, light beard, long mustache, one eyebrow higher than the other. Big hands, big feet, 5 ells tall. That is 7 feet if the saga tells it true. Some say 6. Henry of Huntingdon recorded the taunt before the battle. Harold Godwinson offered Tostig back his earldom. What about Harold Hardrada, 6 feet of English ground, or 7 since he is taller than most men? The throne is there for the taking. Hardrada listens. He has a claim, tenuous. His nephew Magnus the Good made a pact with Harthacnut, who ruled England from 1040 to 1042. If either died without heirs, the survivor takes both kingdoms. Magnus died in 1047. Edward the Confessor ignored the pact. Now Edward is dead. Hardrada sees his moment. He is 51. This is his last role. 300 ships. Snorri says over 200 warships plus supply craft. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicle manuscript D says 300. Combined with reinforcements from Orkney and men Tostig brings from Flanders and Scotland, the invasion force numbers between 9,000 and 15,000 warriors. Modern estimates settle near 11,000. Not just Norwegians, Icelanders, Orcadians, Flemish mercenaries, Scots. This is the largest Viking invasion force to hit England in decades. At Recall, 10 miles south of York, Hardrada anchors, leaves a strong guard with the ships, maybe a third of his force, takes 6,000 warriors and marches on York. They cannot let Hardrada take the city. They march south from York on September 20th with 5,000 men, local levies, fyrd, farmers, craftsmen, some thegns, not the professional housecarls Harold keeps in the south. The 2 armies meet at Gate Fulford, just south of York. River Ouse on one flank, Germany Beck, a stream or ditch, to the front, marshy ground called Fordland on the other flank. Morcar and Edwin deploy across the road with a shield wall. The Norwegians have higher ground. Hardrada can see the whole field. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicle manuscript C says the English caused heavy casualties at first. The Vikings held. Then Hardrada moved. He pushed his left flank forward, his best warriors. Veterans from Byzantium, the Varangian men. They hit the English right. The line bent, broke. The English retreated into the marsh. Many drowned. The Chronicle calls it a great slaughter. Modern estimates, 15% casualties across both sides. That is 1,650 dead from 11,000 engaged. But English losses ran higher, maybe 25%. 1,250. English dead or drowned. The northern fyrd is shattered. When news of the Norwegian landing reached him, he was on the south coast, waiting, watching for William of Normandy's fleet. All summer his army sat ready. The fyrd, naval forces on the Isle of Wight, coast guards in Sussex and Kent. Supplies ran low. Harvest time came. On September 8th, Harold released the fyrd, sent them home. 4 days later, Hardrada hit Yorkshire. Harold assembled a new army instantly, housecarls, his elite, thegns. Local levies as he marched. The distance from London to York, 190 miles. The usual travel time, 2 weeks or more. Harold made it in 9 days. Some say 4 if he left September 16th when news arrived. He did not rest, rode hard. Maybe mounted infantry, 25 miles a day. Commandeered fresh horses, gathered men as he went. By September the 24th, he reached Tadcaster 6 miles from York. The earls briefed him. Fulford was a disaster. The north is broken. No reinforcements from Mercia or Northumbria. Mid-morning, a rider approaches, speaks to Tostig, offers him back his earldom, turn against Hardrada. Tostig asks what Harold will give the Norwegian king. The rider says 6 feet of English ground. Maybe 7, since he is taller than other men. Then he rides away. Hardrada asks who that was. Tostig says that was my brother, King Harold himself. Angry, Hardrada scrambles. His force is divided. Some on the west bank, most on the east. The bridge is the choke point, wooden, narrow. The Vikings on the west side fight, die, flee. Harold's men push to the bridge. This is where the legend lives. The entire English army funnels toward him. He swings, men die. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicle says he killed 40 Englishmen, 40, one man holding a bridge against thousands. The English cannot pass, cannot flank. The river is deep. The bridge is the only way. Minutes stretch. Blood pools. The bodies pile. Then an English soldier has an idea. He finds a barrel. Half barrel. Floats under the bridge downstream. Current carries him beneath the planks. He has a spear. Thrusts it up through the gaps in the bridge. The blade finds flesh. The berserker falls. The bridge is open. The English hit the wall. The fight is brutal. Close. Axe work. Spear thrusts. Shield bashing. Hours pass. Hardrada is in the thick of it. Fighting without armor. Fearless. Then an arrow. Throat. He goes down. Snorri says he was in a berserk rage when he fell. Hacking. Killing. Then blood. Silence. Tostig takes command. Tries to rally, but the momentum is gone. He was at Recall guarding the ships. 25 kilometers south. He heard the battle. Ran. Fully armed, full mail. His men with him. Some collapse from exhaustion before reaching the field. The rest hit the English line. This is Orre's storm. The Norse sagas say it briefly stopped Harold's advance. Fresh warriors, full armor, desperation. They fight like demons, but they are outnumbered, exhausted. The English grind them down. Orre dies. The shield wall shatters. Harold grants a truce to the survivors. Hardrada's son, Olaf, Earl Paul of Orkney. They can go, take the living, leave the dead. How many ships sailed home? 24 from 324. Also, this script is researched and factual, using sources from the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle manuscript D, published around 1060 to 1154, Snorri Sturluson's Heimskringla from around 1220 to 1230, which contains King Harold's saga, Henry of Huntingdon's Historia Anglorum from the early 12th century, and modern battlefield analysis from English Heritage's official Stamford Bridge report published in 2000. 12. These are primary medieval sources and rigorous contemporary scholarship. Now back to the information. Men who fought in Constantinople and Sicily, veterans, gone. The survivors limp to Recall, board the ships, sail home. No plunder, no glory, just ghosts. Lost a third of his army. His men are exhausted. His housecarls are dead. The northern earls, Edwin and Morcar, are combat ineffective after Fulford. They will not march south. Harold marches anyway. Back to London, 5 days. Gathers what forces he can. Marches to Hastings, October 14th. 21 days after Stamford Bridge. Harold fights William. The Norman cavalry breaks the shield wall. Harold dies. Arrow to the eye. Some say cut down by swords. Either way he falls. England falls. The Normans take the crown. Aggressive. He crushed the Welsh in 1063 with lightning campaigns. He crushed Hardrada in 1066 the same way. At Hastings, he tried it again. Arrived before all his men assembled. Attacked before he was ready. The Normans were ready. Harold was not. Treasure looted. Europe learned to fear the dragon ships. For 273 years the Norse came, raided, settled, conquered. The Danelaw, Dublin, Normandy, Iceland, Greenland, Vinland. They carved kingdoms from chaos. But the age was ending. The last great Viking king died at Stamford Bridge. No more would a Scandinavian force threaten to conquer England. There would be raids. Svein Estrithson of Denmark tried in 1069. Magnus Barefoot of Norway raided in 1098 and 1102. But these were echoes, aftershocks. The Great Wave broke at Stamford Bridge. Logistics, diplomacy. When he took Norway's throne in 1046, he was already a legend. The Thunderbolt of the North. Adam of Bremen called him that. He fought Denmark for 17 years. King Svein finally signed peace in 1064, then turned to England, one last prize. Hardrada survived 15 years of wars across 3 continents. Came home, ruled for 20 years. In 1066, he was slowing, still strong, still tall, still fierce, but not the man who stormed Sicily in his 20s. The young warriors at Stamford Bridge were faster, hungrier, and Harold Godwinson was 44, younger, rested until the march north, sharp. Left a third at Recall, marched 6,000 to Stamford Bridge. Why? Overconfidence. York surrendered. The hostages were coming. No threat expected. The warm September day made mail unbearable. The warriors wanted comfort. They paid with blood. When Harold appeared, Hardrada had no armor, no reserve, no plan. He formed a shield wall and fought, brave, stupid. A veteran of Constantinople and Sicily dies on a meadow in Yorkshire because he underestimated an enemy and got comfortable. That is the lesson. Comfort kills. Time to send riders to recall for Ore's reinforcements. Time to prepare. If he had not held that bridge, the English would have overrun the Norwegians while they were scattered and unarmored. The casualties would have been worse. The battle would have ended in minutes. Instead, it lasted hours. The berserker's name is lost. The chronicle does not give it. Snorri does not name him. But his act survives. 40 Englishmen. 1 bridge, 1 axe. Then a spear from below, and he is gone. That is Viking combat distilled. Ferocity, skill, death. Just rage and loyalty. They hit the English, and briefly the line held. A moment of hope. Then Ore fell. The men broke. If Ore had stayed at recall with the ships, the survivors might have had a safer retreat. If he had marched with Hardrada in the morning, the Norwegians would have been stronger. Instead, he arrived at the worst moment. Too late to save Hardrada, too exhausted to turn the tide, too brave to retreat. He died with his king. His men died with him, loyal to the end. So many that locals said for 50 years you could see bones. 50 years. That takes us to 1116. A half century later, people still found remains. Skulls, ribs, axes rusted into the soil. 13,800 dead or abandoned. Some died at Fulford, some at Stamford Bridge, some from wounds on the journey, some decided to stay in England, settle in the Danelaw, hide. But the bulk died. 2 battles, 5 days. The Norwegian invasion ended. He rebelled against his brother, aligned with Norway, invaded his homeland, fought English soldiers, died a traitor. But from his perspective, Harold was the traitor. Harold supported the Northumbrian Rebellion in 1065, backed Tostig's removal, endorsed Morcar as the new earl. Family loyalty snapped. Tostig wanted revenge. He got death. His army was smaller. A third of his housecarls were buried in Yorkshire. His northern earls refused to march. Morcar and Edwin were done. Fulford broke them. Harold had levies, some thanes. His remaining housecarls, enough to form a shield wall on Senlac Hill. They fought all day. October 14th, the Normans attacked uphill. Harold's line held. Then the Norman cavalry feigned retreat. The English broke formation, chased. The Normans turned. Slaughter. Harold died at dusk. Arrow or sword. Either way, the line broke. England fell. William took the crown Christmas Day. It worked against Hardrada. It failed against William. The Normans were different. Disciplined, professional. They had cavalry. They had tactics. They waited for mistakes. Harold gave them one. The fake retreat. The broken shield wall. That was the end. The Norman Age begins. The language changes. Old English absorbs French. Law changes. Feudalism replaces the Saxon system. Architecture changes. Stone castles. Norman churches. The landscape changes. Land redistribution. The Domesday Book in 1086 catalogs it all. Every hide of land, every plow, every pig. The Normans documented their conquest. The Anglo-Saxons became subjects. If Hardrada wins, there is no march to Hastings. If Hardrada takes York, he marches south. Maybe he meets William. Maybe they fight. Maybe they agree to split England. Would Hardrada have beaten William? Doubtful. The Norwegians were good at raids. Shield walls. Close combat. The Normans had cavalry, archers, siege engines. Hardrada died to an arrow at Stamford Bridge. He would have died to an arrow at Hastings. Or a lance. Or a flanking charge. The Norman tactics were built to break shield walls. They beat Harold. They would have beaten Hardrada. But we never found out. Harold killed him first. 50 years of weather scattered them. Plows churned the soil. Modern building covered the area. But metal detectorists still find objects. Coins, belt fittings, fragments. In 2012, English Heritage conducted a survey. Terrain analysis, historical sources, landscape study. The conclusion? The battle happened near the modern town. Exact location uncertain. The bridge no longer exists. The original was wooden, replaced over centuries. The current bridge is modern. A monument stands on Main Street. Inscription in English and Norwegian. The Battle of Stamford Bridge was fought in this neighborhood on September 25th, 1066. Simple. True. Fewer know the berserker on the bridge. Yet it mattered. It bled Harold's army. It removed the Norwegian threat. It set the stage for Hastings. It ended the Viking Age. If you teach English history, you mention Stamford Bridge as the prelude to Hastings. If you teach Viking history, you mention it as the end of the saga, but it deserves more. It was the largest Viking invasion of the 11th century. It was the bloodiest battle of 1066. It killed the last great Viking king. It broke 2 armies in 5 days. It changed the fate of a kingdom. Snorri Sturluson, writing in Iceland in the 1220s, gives the most color. King Harold's saga in the Heimskringla, conversations, descriptions, Hardrada's height, the eyebrow, the final poem, the dream omens, the witch on a wolf singing death songs. Snorri wrote 2 centuries after the battle. He had access to oral traditions, skaldic poetry, Icelandic sagas, but he also embellished. The speeches are dramatic, the details are vivid. How much is true? Hard to say. Historians use him carefully, cross-reference with the Chronicle, with Henry of Huntingdon, with battlefield archaeology. The core narrative holds 300 ships, Fulford, Stamford Bridge, thousands dead, the end of Viking England. Blade width maybe 12 inches, steel, edge honed sharp. A swing could split a shield, split a helmet, split a man from shoulder to hip. Vikings loved them, trained with them, passed them down generations. At Stamford Bridge, both sides used them. English thanes carried them, Norse warriors swung them. The shield walls clashed, and axes did the work. Spears too, 7-foot shafts, iron heads, thrown or thrust, stabbing over the shields. Jabbing at legs and faces. Swords were rare, expensive, pattern welded, passed as heirlooms. Some at Stamford Bridge carried swords, most did not. The common warrior had an axe or spear, a shield, a helmet if lucky, mail if wealthier, leather if poor. At Stamford Bridge, many Norwegians had no mail. The warm day, the false security, they fought in tunics. Hardrada himself had no armor when the arrow found him, a king in cloth. That is how confident they were. That is how wrong. Women lose husbands. The Domesday Book in 1086 shows the economic collapse. Vast stretches of England marked waste. Waste means destroyed, abandoned, depopulated. Some from William's harrying of the north in 1069. Some from the battles of 1066, Fulford, Stamford Bridge, Hastings. The fighting killed thousands, the aftermath killed more. Famine, disease, Norman reprisals. By 1086, England has bled for 20 years. Because Hardrada divided his force and fought without armor. Because one arrow in the right throat kills a king. The Viking edge was speed, surprise, terror, hit coastal targets, grab treasure, leave before the army arrives. But Stamford Bridge was a pitched battle, stand and fight, shield wall versus shield wall. In that fight, the Vikings had no advantage, they lost. Dublin, Normandy. The Norse raided and settled and carved out kingdoms, but by the 11th century the kingdoms fought back, fortified towns, standing armies, organized defense. Alfred the Great built burhs across Wessex in the late 9th century. Fortified settlements. When Vikings raided, there was a refuge, a garrison, resistance. By 1066, England was no longer easy prey. Harold Godwinson was no monastery abbot. He was a warrior king with a trained army. Hardrada learned that, died for it. Finds the gap where male should be but is not. Hardrada's throat, blood, shock. He falls. The king is dead. The line breaks. It always comes down to this. One moment, one wound, one death. Battles are chaos and violence and screaming and blood, and then a king dies and it is over. Stamford Bridge lasted hours. Hardrada died in seconds. That is war. Death songs. Laments for the thunderbolt of the north. Snorri records one. Hardrada himself supposedly composed it as he lay dying. Hard did we fight in the battle. The skulls of warriors cracked beneath our weapons. The blood of Vikings stained the ground. We fought and fell, but we fought well. Whether Hardrada actually spoke these words or Snorri invented them centuries later matters less than the sentiment. Viking warriors valued a good death. Valhalla awaited the brave. Odin's Hall. Feasting and fighting forever. Hardrada got his good death. Throat pierced, shield wall broken. Enemies everywhere. He died a warrior. The skalds sang. The sagas remembered. That is Viking immortality. His blade hits something hard. He digs. Finds a skull, ribs, a rusted axe head. He knows the stories. His grandfather fought there, or died there. The farmer reburies the bones. Or maybe he does not. Maybe he piles them aside, builds a cairn, a marker. Or maybe he just keeps plowing. The bones churn into the soil, become part of the earth. By 1166, a full century has passed. The Normans have ruled for 100 years. The Domesday Book is 80 years old, but farmers still find bones at Stamford Bridge. The field remembers. The dead do not leave. If the earls fell, Hardrada takes Yorkshire, then marches south. Harold has to fight him eventually, but Harold would be rested. Full strength, he could pick the ground, fortified position, strong shield wall, make Hardrada attack uphill, exhaust the Norwegians, then counter. Would it work? Maybe. But then William lands, and Harold faces 2 invasions. Norwegian in the north, Norman in the south. Split his forces? Defend London and hope Hardrada stops at York? Risky. Harold chose speed, eliminate one enemy, then face the other. Logical. It almost worked. He crushed Hardrada. marched south, met William, lost by inches, an arrow, a broken formation. The margin between victory and defeat was tiny. If Harold wins at Hastings, we call him Harold the Great. His march north becomes brilliant strategy. His victory at Stamford Bridge becomes legendary. Instead, he dies. The Normans win. Stamford Bridge is a footnote. That is how history works. Winners write, losers fade. But it ties the ground to the battle. Physical evidence. In 2018, more finds, belt fittings, bronze, decorated Viking style. Could be from the Norwegian army. Could be from local trade. But the location aligns with battle flats. The tradition holds, this is where they fought. But the meadows east of the Derwent match the descriptions. High ground for Hardrada, low ground near the river, space for thousands of men to fight. The bodies would have fallen here, bled into the soil, fed the grass. By spring 1067, wildflowers grew on mass graves. Beautiful, terrible. That is the end of the Viking Age. Flowers on bones. Overconfidence bred from success. He had crushed enemies for 30 years. The Byzantines trusted him with their emperor's life. Norway obeyed him without question. Denmark made peace with him. He was the thunderbolt of the north. Adam of Bremen wrote that in 1070, 4 years after Stamford Bridge. The name survived even after the death. But at Stamford Bridge, Hardrada faced something new, a Saxon king who moved like lightning. Harold Godwinson was not a monastery, not a trading town, not a rival Viking. He was professional with a professional army. Hardrada misjudged him, divided his force, left armor behind, celebrated too early. These are amateur mistakes from a veteran warrior. That is what overconfidence does. It makes you sloppy. The berserker on the bridge was not sloppy. He understood perfectly. One man, one bridge. Buy time, kill as many as possible. Then die. Simple. Clear? He executed perfectly. Killed 40. Bought minutes. Then died to a spear through the bridge. His contribution to the battle was immense. Without him, the English overrun scattered Vikings in minutes. With him, Hardrada got time to form a defense. Not enough time to win, but enough to make it a battle rather than a massacre. That is the difference between a warrior who knows his job and a king who forgot his. The political implications ripple beyond England. Norway lost its king at Stamford Bridge. Hardrada's son Magnus became co-king with his brother Olaf. They ruled jointly until Magnus died in 1069. Just 3 years. Olaf continued alone until 1093, but the Norwegian throne never recovered its prestige. Hardrada had been the last of the great warrior kings, the last to campaign across continents, the last to truly threaten foreign powers. After 1066, Norway turned inward. Domestic concerns, Scandinavian politics. The age of Viking expansion ended. Denmark too withdrew. Sweyn Estrithson's raids in 1069 achieved nothing. William crushed them, harried the north, burned villages, starved the population. The Norwegians and Danes saw the cost. They left England alone after that. The era of Danegeld was over. No more paying Vikings to leave. The English learned to fight back and win. Could not maneuver. Just stand and die. The English wall pushed forward, ground down the Norwegians, won through attrition. At Hastings 3 weeks later, the Saxon wall stood on a hill. Strong position, held all day. But when it broke, the battle ended instantly. Norman cavalry poured through the gaps, cut down fleeing soldiers. The shield wall was obsolete. The future belonged to combined arms, infantry, cavalry, archers, coordination. The Normans understood this. The English and Vikings did not. That is why the Normans conquered England and held it for centuries. But he had only 5 days before Stamford Bridge. 5 days to organize, redistribute, move supplies from York to the army. Not enough time. At Stamford Bridge, the Norwegians were operating on what they carried. Maybe 2 days of rations. No resupply during the fight, just whatever they brought. The English were better supplied. Harold brought provisions from the south, commandeered more along the march. By the time he reached Stamford Bridge, his army was fed and ready. Logistics, wind wars. Hardrada lost the logistics war before the first arrow flew. Crossing without the bridge meant swimming in mail, drowning. So the English had to take the bridge, and one Viking blocked it. The engineering question is how. A narrow bridge means single file, maybe 2 abreast if wide. One man with an axe can cover that width, stand sideways, swing at anyone who approaches. The English could not shoot him easily. Too many friendlies crossing or trying to cross. Could not flank. River too deep. So they solved it with a spear from below. Simple, effective, brutal. That English soldier's name is also lost. But his solution saved hundreds of English lives, or maybe thousands. The battle hinges on small moments like that. One man in a barrel with a spear, another man alone on a bridge with an axe. These are the details that decide kingdoms. Harold became king January 6th, 1066. Died October 14th the same year. 9 months and 8 days. His brother Tostig died at Stamford Bridge fighting against him. His other brothers Gurth and Leofwine died at Hastings fighting with him. 3 brothers dead in 3 weeks. The family was annihilated. Harold's mother Githa survived. She fled to Exeter, then to Flanders, died in exile. Harold's children fled too, some to Ireland, some to Scandinavia. The male line was hunted, killed, or scattered. The Godwinson claim ended. The Norman propaganda painted Harold as a usurper, an oathbreaker, a traitor to William. The Bayeux Tapestry shows him taking an oath, then breaking it, then dying for it. Norman storytelling, winner's history. But the English remembered differently. Harold defended his kingdom against 2 invasions in 3 weeks, won 1, lost the other by inches. That is not a usurper. That is a warrior king. History should remember him better. No markers, no names, just earth and bones. The chronicles say she died of grief that same day. November 1066, same day her father died, same day Ore died. 53 days later, grief killed her as surely as the arrow killed Hardrada. She is buried somewhere near York, unmarked, forgotten. The last casualty of Stamford Bridge was a girl who never saw the battle. That is the real cost, not just the warriors, the families, the daughters, the wives, the mothers, the ones who did not sail to England but lost everything anyway. The Viking Age ends with a girl dying of grief in a foreign city. That is the final line. Cold, true. This is September 1066. These are the dead. This is history.